First off, I've been enjoying myself so much, and it kind of makes you want to settle down and forget about singing yourself.
But I always picked my own material and everything. The good parts of it would stick with me. And I carried demos.
Gene Watson, that when you were ill, when you had cancer back in coming to your aid and your help.
What really goes on behind the velvet curtains of the Grand Ole Opry? For decades, fans have wondered why some voices are invited into the circle while others wait in the wings. At 81, Gene Watson is opening up about his journey, how he stood on that stage for decades as a guest, but never a member, how one unforgettable night changed everything, and rumors suggest there were health battles and sacrifices along the way that he never revealed publicly. Fans thought they knew Gene Watson's story, but there's more to discover about his path to country music's most legendary stage. On the night of January 17, 2020, the Ryman Auditorium was buzzing with the kind of electricity that only the Grand Ole Opry can conjure. Gene Watson had already given the crowd what they came for, his smooth, timeless voice wrapping itself around the classic Farewell Party, the song that had followed him like a shadow for decades. As the last note drifted into the rafters, the audience roared in approval. Watson had no idea that history was about to unfold right at his feet. Vince Gill, Opry legend and country music statesman, stepped out from the wings with a grin. "Gene," he said, almost casually, "they told me if you'd sing Farewell Party, you could be the next member of the Grand Ole Opry." The crowd froze for a split second before erupting into thunderous applause. Some were on their feet, some in tears. Many realized they were witnessing something extraordinarily rare, a live Opry invitation delivered in real time. For Watson, the shock was written all over his face. His eyes widened, his voice cracked. For the first time in years, the man known for steady control on stage was visibly shaken. Unlike industry awards that come with red carpet build-up and weeks of speculation, Opry invitations have always been different, personal, secretive, and almost ritualistic. Only a select few artists are surprised in front of a live audience. Gene Watson had just joined that exclusive club. At 76 years old, he admitted he never thought it would happen this late in life. For fans who had followed him since the 1970s, the moment was a victory long overdue. A recognition that the institution of country music hadn't abandoned its roots even as the industry pushed toward younger, more commercial sounds. That night at the Ryman was just the beginning of what became a two-step process. 3 weeks later, on February 7, 2020, Watson walked onto the stage of the Grand Ole Opry House for his formal induction. This time, it was Steve Wariner, another celebrated member, who had the honor of officially welcoming him into the Opry family. With the symbolic words and the historic wooden circle beneath his boots, Watson's decades of hard work were finally bound to the Opry's legacy. Wariner reminded the audience that Opry membership was more than a title. It was a bond, a covenant with history itself. Watson's voice cracked as he thanked his fans, his peers, and the audiences that had carried him across 5 decades. For many in attendance, those 2 nights became proof that the Opry still knows how to honor its past while moving into the future. What started as a playful line from Vince Gill had rewritten the trajectory of Watson's career, transforming him overnight from a respected veteran into an official guardian of the Opry's sacred circle. But that raises a bigger question. Why did it take so long? For decades, Watson's voice had been echoing inside those same Opry walls without membership. Some fans have speculated about industry politics, while others point to the Opry's mysterious selection process. The answer lies in the journey that shaped him long before that night, and the challenges that nearly kept him from the circle altogether. Long before that fateful night, when Vince Gill extended the Opry's invitation, Gene Watson's voice had already been echoing through its walls for decades. To fans, he was never just another guest artist. He was the embodiment of traditional country, a reminder of the storytelling roots that built the Opry itself. When he first broke through in the 1970s with Love in the Hot Afternoon, it was clear that Watson's sound didn't belong to fleeting trends. The sultry ballad, released in 1975, was unlike the lighter fare that dominated radio at the time. It was bold, sophisticated, and soaked in honesty. The kind of song that demanded attention instead of chasing it. That single climbed into the Billboard Top 5 and marked Watson as a singer who could not only hold his own, but stand apart from the crowded field of Nashville hopefuls. 2 years later, Paper Rosie reaffirmed that he wasn't a one-hit wonder. Its haunting story of a street vendor whose flowers became a memorial ballad resonated deeply with audiences. Opry crowds embraced it instantly, because it sounded like the kind of song their parents and grandparents would have leaned in to hear on a crackling radio decades earlier. Then came 14 Karat Mind in 1981, Watson's only #1 hit, one that remains a fixture in set lists across the country. Each performance seemed to build his credibility not just as a singer, but as a storyteller whose phrasing carried the weight of lived experience. Critics often struggled to describe what made Watson different. The phrase that stuck was liquid country, a voice so smooth yet emotionally charged that it flowed straight into the heart without flash or gimmick. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he never chased the pop-infused crossover sound that labels often demanded. He stayed true to honky-tonk balladry, relying on honesty and restraint. This decision cost him mainstream recognition at times. It earned him something much more valuable: respect from the legends who knew real country when they heard it. Conway Twitty, George Jones, and other giants admired his precision and his ability to bring raw emotion to a lyric without over-singing it. Watson's appearances at the Opry were always met with anticipation. Even though he wasn't an official member, audiences treated him like one. Fans would ask, sometimes bluntly, why he hadn't been inducted yet. For many, it was a mystery. After all, Watson had the credentials, the hits, and the authenticity the Opry claimed to cherish. But membership has never been a simple calculation of chart success. The Opry's tradition has always been built on a mix of timing, loyalty, and unspoken rituals that often kept outsiders guessing. For Gene, those rules meant waiting, watching, and proving himself night after night, year after year. Behind the scenes, Watson never lobbied for the honor. He treated every invitation to perform as a privilege rather than a right. That humility endeared him to Opry insiders, even if it frustrated fans who wanted to see him officially recognized. By the time the 2000s rolled around, the Opry had begun leaning heavily on younger acts and crossover stars. Many feared that Gene Watson's style of country would quietly fade into the background. But every time he stepped onto that stage, his voice pulled audiences back into the roots of the genre. His performances reminded the Opry and its leadership that authenticity was not just part of its past, but essential to its future. For Gene Watson, the Opry circle always felt close enough to touch, but somehow just out of reach. Decades of service to the music had already made him a member in spirit, even if the paperwork didn't say so. Fans speculated endlessly about when, or even if, the invitation would come. Some wondered if there were behind-the-scenes factors at play, though nothing was ever confirmed. What's clear is that Watson kept showing up, kept singing, and let his music speak for itself. For outsiders, the words Grand Ole Opry membership might sound like another music industry honor, a title to be added to resumes alongside CMA awards or Hall of Fame plaques. But within Nashville, insiders know it means something far different and far more demanding. Unlike a Grammy, which celebrates a single performance or album, Opry membership is not about one moment in an artist's career. It is a commitment, an unspoken contract with history. It comes with expectations that many fans never see. The Opry has never allowed just anyone to slip into its ranks. At any given time, only about 70 to 75 artists hold active membership, a carefully balanced roster that blends legends with rising stars. That number matters. It means membership is exclusive, not endless. Every new name added to the list represents a deliberate choice about what country music should be in that moment. Members aren't chosen because of their chart positions alone, or even their popularity at a given time. Instead, the Opry looks at consistency, authenticity, and loyalty to the stage itself. The rules are unspoken, but rigid. Members are expected to appear regularly on the Opry stage, week after week, year after year. That consistency is the glue that binds the Opry to its audiences. Fans who have been buying tickets for decades don't just come to hear new voices. They return to reconnect with the familiar ones who shaped their love for country music in the first place. Missing shows for long stretches without reason doesn't go unnoticed. Over the years, artists who failed to honor that responsibility quietly drifted into the background. For those who commit, however, the Opry becomes more than a venue. It becomes a second home. At the heart of this tradition lies the circle itself. The legendary 6-foot circle of oak wood that was cut from the stage of the old Ryman Auditorium and transplanted to the Opry House in 1974. It has absorbed the footsteps of Hank Williams, Patsy Cline, Porter Wagoner, Loretta Lynn, and countless others. Standing on it is not simply about performance, it is about connection. For fans, watching a new member step into that circle is proof that the lineage continues, that the soul of country music is still alive. This was what made Watson's 2020 induction so powerful. In an era when country music was being pulled in every direction, the Opry doubled down on tradition by extending its hand to a singer who had never wavered in his devotion to classic honky-tonk storytelling. It wasn't a move made for headlines. It was a message to the fans. We have not forgotten where we came from. Watson, who had been humbly waiting for decades, suddenly found himself carrying the torch, not just for his own career, but for the generations who saw his music as the heartbeat of authenticity. When Vince Gill surprised Watson on that January night, he wasn't just delivering an invitation. He was asking a question. Are you ready to carry this weight? Watson, with his cracked voice and tearful eyes, said yes without hesitation. Little did he know, the timing of that invitation would make his story even more symbolic, because the Opry itself was standing on the edge of a milestone that would test every member's dedication. Timing has always been everything at the Grand Ole Opry. Some artists are inducted at the peak of their careers, others near the end of their journey. But for Gene Watson, the timing of his membership was almost poetic. His official induction in February 2020 placed him right at the threshold of the Opry's greatest milestone yet, its 100th anniversary. The Opry, first broadcast in 1925, was preparing to celebrate a full century of uninterrupted Saturday night shows. Gene Watson's arrival into the family wasn't just about recognizing his decades of music. It was about anchoring the Opry's roots as it moved into a bold new century. By the late 2010s, the Opry had been making deliberate efforts to modernize its reach. Performances were streamed worldwide, social media expanded its fan base far beyond Tennessee, and younger stars were invited to keep fresh energy flowing into the circle. But with this digital expansion came a real fear among traditionalists that the Opry might lose touch with the sound that made it iconic. Inviting Gene Watson into the fold during this transitional moment was a deliberate statement. It was as if the Opry was saying to its audience, "We are reaching forward, but we will not let go of the past." Watson's induction became a symbolic bridge. His honky-tonk storytelling, his refusal to bend his style to passing trends, and his unshakable commitment to tradition offered a counterweight to the genre's ongoing evolution. Then came the storm no one expected. Just weeks after his induction, the COVID-19 pandemic brought the live music industry to a standstill. Concert halls went dark, tours were canceled, and audiences were sent home. For the Opry, a show that had never missed a Saturday broadcast in nearly a century, it was an unprecedented challenge. The seats sat empty, but the circle did not. The Opry continued with skeleton crews, streaming performances to fans at home in silence, the sound echoing off bare walls instead of cheering crowds. Watson's recent induction took on a new meaning. He had become a symbol of continuity, a reminder that the Opry could weather storms just as it had survived wars, depressions, and disasters in the past. When Watson stepped into the circle during those months of uncertainty, he wasn't just entertaining, he was preserving faith in the Opry's promise. Fans watching from their living rooms could see the same man who had once sung in dusty Texas dance halls now holding steady on country music's most hallowed ground. By the time the Opry fully emerged into its centennial era, Gene Watson was already cemented as one of its anchors. His induction wasn't a nostalgic gesture for a veteran. It was a cornerstone decision that proved the Opry was serious about honoring tradition while embracing the future. He represented survival, resilience, and the soul of country music that refuses to fade. For fans, the timing felt almost destined. After years of being overlooked, Watson was finally where he belonged, carrying the weight of the past into a new century. When Gene Watson officially became a member of the Grand Ole Opry in early 2020, it wasn't just about adding another name to the roster. It was about joining a living, breathing tradition, one that's continuously shaped and redefined by the artists who walk its stage. Membership in the Opry isn't just about status, it's about responsibility, community, and legacy. For Watson, stepping into the circle meant he wasn't just performing for the audience anymore. He was now a part of an ongoing conversation, linking past, present, and future through music. Gene's presence at the Opry wasn't just a reminder of the genre's history. It was an invitation to new artists to sit at the table with a living legend. For years, Watson had been a guest on the Opry stage, sharing the spotlight with some of the biggest names in country music. Now, he had become one of the central figures in a family that spanned generations. The Opry has always celebrated both the old guard and the rising stars. Watson's induction was the perfect illustration of this balance. For younger artists, the chance to share a stage with Gene Watson was nothing short of a masterclass. His unflashy style, emotional depth, and storytelling ability had earned him the respect of some of country music's biggest names, including Vince Gill, who had personally invited him to join the Opry. Watson never approached his new role as a member of the Opry with a sense of entitlement. Instead, he quietly embraced the role of mentor, offering advice and insight to younger artists through casual backstage conversations and shared performances. His collaborations with artists like Vince Gill, Connie Smith, and Jeannie Seely illustrated the power of mentorship. Each collaboration brought out the best in Watson's performance, while also providing a platform for rising stars to share the stage with a legend. There was no ego in Watson's approach. He wasn't there to overshadow anyone. Instead, he used his decades of experience to uplift those around him, subtly guiding them in phrasing, tone, and emotional storytelling. One of the most memorable moments of his Opry tenure was when he shared the stage with younger artists, whose careers he had followed from afar. Watching the next generation of stars bring their own spin to the genre Watson had helped define was both humbling and inspiring. It was a reminder that the circle was not static, it was evolving. Watson, by simply showing up, became a bridge between eras, an artist who had mastered the past but embraced the future. In his quieter moments, backstage at the Opry or during intimate conversations with peers, Watson often shared stories of his early days, how he built his career from the ground up in Texas dance halls, singing for gas money and hoping for a break. These stories weren't just for the new artists, they were for anyone who still had the hunger to succeed. For Watson, the Opry was a place to continue growing, even as a seasoned veteran. Every appearance, every performance, was another opportunity to refine his craft and to ensure that the songs he sang didn't just echo the past, but spoke to the future. Gene Watson's career isn't defined by fleeting moments of fame or short-lived hits. It's a legacy built on consistency, authenticity, and a relentless commitment to the music. Over the span of more than 6 decades, Gene Watson released 34 studio albums, with an array of top 10 hits that became timeless standards. Take his 1981 #1 hit, 14 Karat Mind. The song was a perfect blend of traditional honky-tonk and emotional depth, earning Watson a spot in the hearts of both mainstream listeners and country purists. But while 14 Karat Mind stands as a career-defining moment, Watson's body of work doesn't rest on just one song. Hits like Farewell Party, Paper Rosie, and Love in the Hot Afternoon each hold a distinct place in the soundtrack of country music. His ability to craft deeply personal stories through his songs, paired with his expressive voice, turned each hit into something more than just a chart-topping number. Yet even as he achieved this success, Watson's career didn't follow the conventional trajectory of many of his contemporaries. He didn't bow to trends, nor did he abandon the roots that defined his sound. His music stayed true to the traditional country style that he had come up with, refusing to chase after the mainstream sounds that dominated Nashville. That decision might have kept him from becoming a household name in the same way as some of his peers. It also secured his place as one of the genre's most respected voices. Critics, peers, and fans alike continued to recognize Watson not for his radio play or flashy performances, but for the emotional honesty he brought to every note. He was known as the singer's singer, a rare artist who earned the respect of both fans and fellow musicians. Beyond the charts, Watson's influence grew through his tireless touring. For years, he played hundreds of shows annually, never missing an opportunity to connect with his fans. For Watson, live performance wasn't just a means of promoting records. It was where his music came to life, where he could communicate directly with the people who had followed him from the beginning. That commitment to his fans was evident in the way he consistently performed with the same passion and precision, whether he was in a sold-out arena or a small honky-tonk club. His voice, though seasoned by years on the road, never lost its power, its emotional depth, or its raw authenticity. By the time Watson was inducted into the Opry, his career was not only a testament to his influence, but a blueprint for longevity in an industry known for its fleeting stars. His ability to adapt to changing times without compromising his artistic integrity is a rare feat in country music. While others may have shifted their sound to remain relevant, Watson stuck to his principles, his storytelling, his phrasing, his voice, and it paid off. For Watson, being inducted into the Opry wasn't the culmination of a career, it was a continuation of a journey that had always been about the music. The charts may have been a measure of success, but they were never the measure of his worth. That was something far deeper. In those final moments on stage, standing in the Opry's sacred circle, Watson was reminded of the real legacy he had built, not in the numbers or the accolades, but in the hearts of the fans who had carried him for so long. At 81 years old, Gene Watson could have easily stepped back from the spotlight, resting comfortably on his decades of achievements. But for him, Opry membership was never about hanging a title on the wall or closing the book on his career. It was about responsibility, presence, and staying true to the music that carried him this far. Even today, Watson continues to treat the Opry stage as sacred ground. For some artists, induction marks the beginning of a gradual retreat from performing. For Watson, it meant the opposite, a renewed commitment to show up, sing, and keep the tradition alive week after week. His public appearances since his induction reveal just how deeply he takes this role to heart. Watson still tours, balancing his own shows with regular Opry appearances. His official website and social media updates don't just promote new gigs, they serve as proof of his dedication, letting fans know he's still here, still working, and still honoring the bond he accepted in 2020. What makes his commitment even more powerful is his openness about the realities of age and health. Over the years, there's been talk among fans about his energy and whether his voice could withstand the demands of live performance. Reports suggest he's faced health challenges along the way, though Watson has kept most details private. What he has shown publicly is resilience. Each appearance, each note delivered with the same precision and emotion, is his answer to any doubts. He's acknowledged the challenges of aging, but framed them with strength, reinforcing the idea that legacy isn't about what you did decades ago, it's about what you continue to do now. Behind the scenes, Watson has also embraced the role of mentor more openly than ever. Younger artists who cross paths with him backstage at the Opry describe not just conversations about music, but lessons in discipline, humility, and endurance. It's been said that his career, marked by challenges both professional and personal, becomes a teaching tool for those just entering the circle. In a way, his presence ensures that traditional country music isn't just preserved in recordings. It's passed on through living interaction. For fans, seeing Watson still standing in the circle is more than nostalgia. It's reassurance. In a genre that constantly changes its sound, and in an industry that often discards the old to make room for the new, Watson represents continuity. He is living proof that a voice rooted in authenticity never goes out of style. When he sings Farewell Party today, it doesn't sound like a relic from the past. It feels like an unbroken thread, tying the stories of yesterday to the ears of today's listeners. Opening up at 81, Gene Watson has shown that his Opry membership isn't the capstone of his career. It's a reminder that tradition doesn't retire, it endures. His story is not one of a man looking back wistfully on what he once was, but of a singer still carrying the torch, still showing up, and still reminding fans that the circle is alive because voices like his refuse to let it fade. Gene Watson's story proves that some legacies aren't built overnight. They are carved through decades of sacrifice, resilience, and unwavering authenticity. His surprise invitation to the Opry, reports of challenges he's faced along the way, and his choice to stay true when others chase trends all remind us that the circle isn't about perfection, it's about presence. At 81, Watson doesn't stand in the Opry's circle as a relic of the past, but as living proof that tradition can breathe in the present. When his voice rises inside those hallowed walls, it isn't just an echo of history, it is history still being written. And that is why Gene Watson's story isn't just about induction, it's about endurance, honesty, and the power of one voice to keep country music's heart beating. If you enjoyed learning about Gene Watson's incredible journey to the Grand Ole Opry, make sure to hit that like button and let us know in the comments what your favorite Gene Watson song is. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another story about country music's greatest legends. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.